ありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございました。はい、私も家族とのやり取りはスラックを使っております。県庁ではマイクロソフト Teams を使いまして、随分最近いろんな効率が図られたと感じております。それでは次は若手経営者の皆さんからご質問、じゃあ。
Thank you. I am with CropWatch. My name is Kevin Cantrell. I am a software engineer, and I'd like to ask a question in English. So over the past decade or so, we've seen a lot of new LPWA technologies coming out. What I'm wondering is, what do you think the largest difficulty these type of technologies will have over the next 10 years?
Sorry, did you say PWA in Progressive Web App? I missed the acronym. You said there's a lot of PWA technologies.
Sorry, LPWA, like low power wide area, such as maybe LoRaWAN, Sigfox, or Helium.
Okay, yes. And your question is the thing like that. What's the difficulty of the deployment of these technologies over the 10 years? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what will be the most difficult factor for these to spread within the next 10 years?
Well, I think the need for these technologies will only increase. And I think the adoption itself is not really an issue. The adoption really is driven mostly by people in the areas that's being served, how much say they have on the deployment of such technologies. For example, sidewalk, well, maybe I should not mention specific ones, but anyway, there are cases around the world where the deployment of such technologies are generally seen as a top-down way. And the services, although it does provide public value, it's not seen as inclusive or participatory enough, so that people who end up being affected by it takes it as a smart city, but not enabling smart citizens image. And once you get into that image where it's empowering only the people who are already quite powerful and not enabling for people who are less powerful, then it could meet public resistance, and the counter expertise would bring their own alternatives that may be analog or not using such technologies or in a way that is counterproductive. In Taiwan, we're very adamant that the rollout of such technologies, for example, the measuring of air qualities, the connection of Internet of Things, is owned and operated by, for example, primary schools and secondary schools. So the teacher and their students have the ultimate control of the deployment of such devices. They learn data stewardship, data journalism, the sharing of data for public good, and so on, based on Arduino or Raspberry Pi deployments. So that's not just the communication layer, but actually the infrastructural layer is community owned and community operated. And because of that, the students are much more empowered and they feel that they are contributing to, for example, whether their parents go outdoor to run in the morning depends on their contributions on their school or balcony on the air pollution level. And that is then taken as pro-social, and they do have a say on how much more investment is needed in that community, or whether the pollution should be monitored more on the industrial parks on this side or on the development square on the other side, and so on. So my suggestion is very simple. We need to include everyone, leave no one behind, and we must not do anything about some people without the contribution of those people. And once that is done, I believe there will be no significant resistance in introduction, because it's, after all, technologies adapting to where the people are, instead of asking people to adapt to the logic of technologies.
Thank you very much.
はい、ありがとうございました。次は宮崎県庁の若手職員からということで、はい。
Hello, my name is Aiko Noguchi. I'm working at the Industry and Commerce Department. Thank you very much for taking time today. I'm very honored to talk with you. I just want to talk about the small businesses. For example, digital business model like internet sales, cashless payment, digital signature. Small business owners such as a very small shop run by one old person or street stores, market stores, taxis, not all, but some of their owners are not so eager to introduce digital devices. So one of the key, I think, is that how to make them feel more specific benefits. Specific benefits of introduction. So I want to ask you is how to make clear the benefits of introduction of digital tools.
Thank you. This is a extremely important topic. Indeed, in Taiwan, we're facing the same situation. Most of the enterprises in Taiwan is small and medium enterprises. And by small, I mean really small, like less than 6 people in staff in total. And many of them, especially providing food services and so on, are increasingly senior. This is exactly the same. What we have done is twofold. One is that we have a program called T Cloud for Taiwan Cloud that provides subsidized deployment fees up to, I believe, 125,000 yen, and across any number of cloud services that they can try. So, for example, during the revitalization period after the COVID wave last year, we introduced free spending money for everyone. And a lot of people choose to redeem that using mobile payments, mobile credit card or Apple Pay or whatever Pay, Google Pay, and so on. And because each person who claimed that digitally have around 20,000 yen to spend this way, this creates an influx of mobile shopping or credit card shopping money to those people, and then they can receive the subsidized payment that instead of buying any device, they can just use their own iPad, because many use iPad to watch streaming video, so they already know how to use an iPad or their own phone with NFC or QR code capabilities, and just install some software to transform that into a point of sale device that can then accept some form of contact-free payment and so on. And because 80% of that setup fee is subsidized by the government, they don't have to pay a lot of upfront cost. And our Ministry of Finance, the Tax Bureau, also said that if they are a small or medium operator, the taxation for those is waived. They don't have to pay an extra business tax. So they lose nothing to try it out, and they gain something if they capture some of those revitalization money. So that's the first thing, is a structured subsidy. And the second thing is another point is the talent. We have the same people, the small and medium enterprise administration, running the training talent transformation, or 3T. I call it the Transformation Ambassador Program. And the program, very simply put, is for people freshly graduated, so people in their early 20s. They don't have to be majoring in business or IT. They can be majoring in anything, but they are paid, subsidized by the small and medium enterprise administration to help the elderly people in some of the more rural areas to adopt the T-Cloud and many other services. Again, their salary is paid by the government for a period of around half a year, and 5 of them form a team like interns, but we don't call them interns. They are reverse mentors, really. They are mentors to those senior people to adopt those digital transformation. And so because they learn something, they work with their mentors themselves and a group of 5. They don't have to pay their tuition. They're subsidized by the state. So we get a lot of people who are educated in urban areas, in the best universities, in large metropolis, to voluntarily work as reverse mentors in the more rural areas to enable talent-based digital transformation. And after all, it helps their employment. Their portfolio looks really good. Their first career begins as something that's very much connected with the future. Instead of being treated as interns and assigned tasks, they can actually work as peers with those small business owners. And that enabled the young people to feel much better about their career choices in the future. I hope that answered your question.
ありがとうございます。宮崎のみならず、日本全国で課題となっておりますので、今のお話参考にさせていただきます。それでは、もう一回戻りまして、高校生、先ほど最前列、はい、手を挙げられた。
Hello, my name is Ai Ito. I'm a high school student of Miyazaki Omiya High School. Thank you so much for your time and for joining in with this event. I have some questions. You told us that young people's power are important in making the society better. Now in Japan, many students are unable to go to school because of their difficult human relationships with their teachers, peers, or family members. They don't feel encouraged and they don't understand the importance of finishing school. Do you think going to school is important for them to have a role in the society in the future? If yes, what should they do and what can we do to help them? I would appreciate it if you answer my question. Thank you.
The answer is no. I am a middle school dropout after all. So, and obviously, dropping out of middle high school did me much good. But I think the question here is not about completing the curriculum in the school, but about not aborting the process of learning when they do not participate in the school curriculum anymore. What I'm trying to say is that school, to me, is not the only place that people can learn. Although my dropping out of the school is fully blessed by the head of my school. Actually, the principal said she will essentially fake the records, so I don't need to get into trouble. So I can start my career in a startup myself when I was 15. So I was blessed by the head of the school. But she also emphasized the importance of a community, a learning community that one can enroll to. In my case, I enrolled as a observer, really, in a nearby university almost as soon as I dropped out of middle school. But mostly I spent time on the open research community, Cornell University's archive network, ARXIV, so that I can find researchers around the world and work together to do research. And so I think what's important is for the schools to continue to provide people who decide not to go to school anymore the same set of resources and services available, preferably online, but maybe also as activities and so on, so that one can use a more peer-to-peer relationship with the schools. So there's no obligation, but there is a lot of resource if you choose to go to there. Indeed, in the past 10 years, there's more and more people who choose to homeschool or alternatively schooled in Taiwan, but because we have a law that said people in the same age should enjoy exactly the same resources. So when they want to find people to play basketball or something together, or they want to get vaccinated or any service provided by their local schools, they can still go back to the school to enjoy such resources and services while maintaining their own schedule, now completely legal in such a way. I understand that it is not yet the case in Japan, but our experience in the past decade shows that it really creates a much fair relationship between the parents and the schools, so that there's a lot of motivation in school now to adapt to the real needs of individualized experience and personalized learning as demanded by the school's parents and students. It creates more democratic relationship for real participation. So that's the experience in Taiwan. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much.
はい、ありがとうございました。それでは次、大学生グループ、どなたか。じゃあ、どうぞ。
日本語で失礼します。宮崎大学の川野誠也と申します。大学では空手をしています。ご質問なんですが、地方では高齢者が多いという問題があり、それを解決するためにインクルーシブな社会を実現させるべきだということで、この社会の実現のためには、若者が一人一人どういった行動を取るべきか、また何から始めるべきなのか、タン大臣の考えがあれば教えていただきたいです。
Spend more time with the senior people and include them when you're designing anything new. And so their wisdom can have a way to make a real impact. Because after all, many elderly people are wise and have a lot of time to contribute. The thing is that they need some topics that they can make a difference in. Again, using my example of my grandmother, almost 90 years old, I check with her to ask her questions about the new digital services every time. So, for example, when we introduced the pre-registration of mask ordering in convenience stores, it is her young friend of 77 years old, grandmother Yang, who said to me that my initial design of using ATM and debit card to pay for the mask is a bad idea, because she only used ATM to get cash. She never used ATM to wire money. To wire money, she always file in a piece of paper at the counter because she doesn't want mistyping something, or because the font is less easy to read. She doesn't want to accidentally transfer her savings out. So she said she will never accept a ATM as a way to pay for the masks. She instead think that's the national Medicare card, the universal healthcare card that people use in pharmacy, because it carries no bank account and doesn't need a password. She said, just let me use my universal health card in the kiosk. Now, that's not what the kiosks are made for, actually, in the beginning. But we checked with all the convenience store chains, and they can actually change the software. So their kiosks accept passwordless universal health card just for mask purchasing. And so a input from the elderly people indeed became our national policy. And then Grandma Yang can then convince people in her community who are younger than her, 66 years old, 55 years old, of this innovation, because, well, that's her idea after all, right? So the more they participate in the very beginning stages of drafting, formulating the designs, the better they will be your allies in spreading your creations and communities, because they have a lot of personal links across communities. So just involve them early and just spend time with them to ask, what do you feel? What's your take on this? That's my answer to your question.
ありがとうございます。
はい、ありがとうございました。では、経営者、先ほど手を挙げられた。
Nice to meet you. Please let me speak in English. So, my name is Aoi Hidaka. I'm running a travel company located in Takachiho town. It's really, really small town. Then, the population is only maybe 10,000 people only. But I found some very, very beautiful and irreplaceable culture there. So that's why we are trying to figure out how we can sustain our very beautiful culture and, history. Then, this is my question is, we would like to know if there are any way to, utilize the digital for cultural transmission underway in Taiwan. So,
Yes.
so because the reason why I'm asking this question, so sometimes it is really difficult to, so when we are facing some difficulties to how we are well balanced between the capitalism and so what is the important for the as a human beings. So sometimes, so
Yes.
so yeah, it is
Okay.
it is one of our so some difficulties or just the things we want to solve it in Takachiho town. I would like to ask you.
Yes. In Taiwan, we see the right to communicate, the right to learn, the right to health, and so on, as fundamental human rights, and they do not actually follow the logic of capitalism. Indeed, universal healthcare in Taiwan is single payer, and it's definitely not capitalist logic at all, right? So a lot of those essential services, the question becomes, how do we make it as efficient or even more efficient than the capitalism way of allocating through venture capitals and so on, worthwhile projects that contributes to the common good, to the public good in a way that scales, is open to innovation in a plural way without relying on just a few decision makers, because each of us have only limited way of thinking of new ideas. So this is a really, really good question. In Taiwan, we have this method called presidential hackathon. And the presidential hackathon website, which I pasted to WebEx, but it's really easy to find, basically said any rural town can actually write their wish to the SDGs aligned goals. So you can wish anything, and it costs nothing to submit such wish. All you have to have is a local SMS number, as I previously mentioned. And then those wishes are divided into two categories. One is that one can be done within the 5 years time frame, or the ones that cannot be done 5 years or longer. It will need some future technology. Now, the short-term ones are put in a national voting called quadratic voting. And the way of quadratic voting says that if your idea has synergy with other ideas, then both will get more votes instead of competing against a zero-sum budget. So it makes it easier if your idea solves the problem for many areas in a similar shape. So it's an innovation in voting methods. And every year we get top 20 ideas that could be done in the short term and incubate them in some small areas. And the 5 ones that show the most promise receive a trophy from our president, Dr. Tsai Ing-wen, which is a shape of Taiwan with a micro projector underneath. If you turn on the projector, it projects Dr. Tsai Ing-wen giving you the trophy. So it describes itself and promising that whatever your idea is, it will gain the budget, personnel, and regulation support as if it's a presidential promise in the next fiscal year. So then your idea became a public infrastructure. And the thing is that it amplifies not just the idea that serves one particular locality, but rather ideas that could spread in a way that works for all localities in Taiwan. Now, the ideas that would take 5 or more years of technology to mature, we work with film directors, of designers, of writers, and so on, and create immersive experiences. So people can put on a pair of goggles or something, step into immersive theater, and experience that future. And we invite researchers, engineers into that reality, that future reality, to inform their design and research agenda so they can serve this imagination as proposed by someone in the rural area that gained widespread support, but is infeasible in the next 5 years. So the hackathon and the ideathon are the ways for us to get the aligned visions for everyone and then introduce innovations as the technologies become available. I hope that answers your question. It's very abstract, I know, but it was an abstract question to begin with.
So thank you very much. I like your phrase, digital is connecting people to people. I do believe so. So the power will make the change and make the future. So I do believe, and I will try to figure out how we can do for the next generation. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。
はい、次は、県庁。
日本語で話します。こんにちは。宮崎県庁の押川と申します。今日、オードリーさんにお伺いしたいのが、公務員としてこれからの未来を、どういう心がけをしながら作っていけばいいのかと。今、台湾政府の中で多くの公務員の皆様と一緒に働かれていると思います。その中で、多様な未来、いろんな国民の人たちの声を聞きながら、彼らに安心とか納得を得ながら、新しい未来を作っていく上で、公務員はどうあるべきだと思われるか、もしくはアドバイス3つも、台湾政府の皆さんにですね、アドバイスをしていることがあれば教えてください。
Thank you. It's a great question. My uncles and aunts and my grandparents were all in public service. So I come from a family that is very aligned with public service thoughts. That is to say, we serve everyone, not just our customers. I think that's the most important difference. And to serve everyone, to work for the people nowadays also means work with the people. Instead of we making all the decisions, it's much easier and much more safe if we just begin by saying, okay, so what does people actually want? And people who feel strongly about something, maybe we can listen to them even before we formulate our own ideas. Previously, when all you have is radio or television or newspaper, it's easy to talk to millions of people, but it's very hard to listen to millions of people. But nowadays, with public infrastructures, such as the Join platform in Taiwan or in Japan, there's Poly, there's Polis, there's many other tools that can listen with each other and scale. It's easier if we start deploying such tools as early as possible for all the major policies. And then you can say it's everyone's business, so everybody must help. And that avoids burnout, because I firmly believe that of all people, public servants need to sleep for 8 hours or more every night, because we need to consider many different viewpoints. And without sufficient sleep, we will commit bias. That's just human nature. So outsourcing into the crowdsourcing is my suggestion to my Taiwanese colleagues in the public sector. And of course, maintaining sufficient hours of sleep. That is actually what retains the best talent in the public sector, because for the Taiwan Semiconductor Company or many other companies in Taiwan, they are now paying very, very high salaries. We cannot compete with them on salaries alone, but we can say, because we deployed such new ways of working with the people, I guarantee that you will not overwork. You will be back home by 7 p.m. at latest, and you will not suffer a burnout. And that's what retains some of the talents in the public sector, even though that the Taiwanese private sector is giving very good package. I hope that answered the question.
はい、ありがとうございます。最後に一人、どうですか？あと一人ぐらいだと時間、すごい素晴らしい。よく手が上がった。
日本語で失礼します。佐良高校1年の横山優太と申します。私は学校で防災アプリを開発しているのですが、しています。先日、東北で震度6強の大きな地震がありました。宮崎でも南海トラフ巨大地震というのが、注目されている中で、今後、ディベロッパーとして防災や減災にどうアプローチできると、考えておりますか
？Yeah, we're all very concerned about earthquake that just happened, and we will, of course, do what we can to help. as the Japanese people have helped Taiwan in our earthquakes in the past. Now, for developers in Taiwan, there's a shared resource called Civil IoT Taiwan. If you search for Civil IoT, you will find it. And it covers not just the earthquakes, but also disasters of all kinds, floods, or even air pollution, or even a disaster in our cybersecurity infrastructure, and so on. And so, because time is currently limited for my speech, I would encourage you to check out the Civil IoT website for the developer resources. But I think the general idea is the same, in that the government should provide the APIs and infrastructures to enable innovations from application developers such as yourself. On the other hand, the application developers need to be transparent on how the data is collected and used, and set up trusted data trusts or data intermediaries, so that those individual uses of the data could be then aggregated in a privacy enhancing way and contribute back to policy making. Only when the open data is complemented with crowdsourced shared data can we actually enable a good circular relationship on policy improvement. Otherwise, the public sector would be essentially providing our open data in a blind way. I already gave an example of the pharmacy distribution of masks and how the distribution can be amplified by people analyzing the data and suggesting something better. So I would say, even for just earthquake advance warnings, how to set the drills, how to spread the ideas about when to find shelter, where to find shelter, and so on. There are plenty of ways to contribute if the application developers also serve as one of the bridges to get ideas from the population and then feedback in a way that's privacy enhancing into the decision makers. So work on both directions, not just publicizing information, but also aggregating information is my main suggestion.
ありがとうございます。
はい。丹大臣、大変多くの質問に対し的確に、また丁寧に回答いただきましてありがとうございます。そろそろお時間が参ってまいりましたので、最後に今日のセミナーを総括して、大臣の方から今日の出席者、そして宮崎県に対するメッセージをお願いできますでしょうか。
Yes, I really am honored to receive such thoughtful questions. And I believe we do share exactly the same values about inclusive innovation and about plurality, not top-down singularity, when it comes to the sources across generations. So I look forward to more exchange with you in the future. And hopefully, by the time the travel restriction lowers on both of our sides, I can actually visit Japan in person. And until then, I wish you live long and prosper.
ありがとうございました。大変有意義な時間をいただきましたことに重ねて、今日の参加者全員を代表して、また県民を代表して、心から感謝を申し上げます。それでは、大臣、モニター越しになりますが、記念撮影を最後によろしいでしょうか。
Yes.
じゃあ、皆さん、マスクをお願いします。
お願いいたしますので、少しお待ちください。
それでは、はい、撮影します。お願いします。よろしいでしょうか。よろしいですか。はい、それでは撮影を終了します。皆さんマスクを戻してください。
それでは丹大臣ありがとうございました。ぜひコロナが落ち着いたら宮崎にお越しいただければと思います。ありがとうございました。
Thank you. ありがとうございました。
通訳にも感謝申し上げます。
はい、以上をもちましてセミナーを閉会いたします。ありがとうございました。